In today's video, we're going to answer a very common question. How often should I do a Wi-Fi performance assessment? Kind of a tricky question to answer. And we actually have to look at when we should do a Wi-Fi performance assessment to determine how often we actually need to do one. So if you're ready, let's get started. First, we need to define what a Wi-Fi performance assessment is. A Wi-Fi performance assessment is a site survey of your existing network and physical environment to assess the current coverage, speed and throughput rates, roaming and throughput performance of your wireless network. So the goal of an assessment is to document any areas of concern and provide a detailed plan to fix those known issues and optimize network performance.
Infrastructure changes.
Anytime you're making a major change to either your infrastructure, your business applications, or the devices that are being used inside of your environment, you're going to want to do a Wi-Fi performance assessment. Those major changes vary across those different buckets. For example, with your infrastructure, if you're adding access points or changing the location or placement of those access points, switching out models, changing switches, adding new switches, anything you're doing with the design or configuration, you're going to want to do a performance assessment to make sure that you're not causing more harm than good with those moves.
So as organizations move through the different generations of Wi-Fi technology, so for example, going from 802.11n to 802.11ac and now moving to 802.11ax, or as some call it, Wi-Fi 6, a Wi-Fi performance assessment would also be recommended. If you perform an assessment as you change out the technology or do a technology refresh, it allows you to have a benchmark to measure against when you do any future technology refreshes or if you start to experience issues. Business application changes.
If you're adding a new business application or changing from one application to the other, you're going to want to do an assessment. We've seen customers who changed out their POS system, for example, and wanted to make sure that on day one of going live with that POS system, that their network was properly optimized to be able to support that application so they wouldn't go down and interrupt their operations once they went live.
Device changes.
The same thing with devices. We're adding IoT devices all the time. New users come on and they're using more and more different types of devices, sometimes out of our control. Anytime we notice an influx of devices or a change like that in the devices that our network's supposed to support, we should do an assessment to make sure that we're optimized to properly handle those scenarios. If you're implementing a lot of those big network changes, you're going to be doing a lot more assessments, and that's going to determine how often you do one. On the other side of it though, what if your network doesn't make a lot of those frequent changes? Should you still do an assessment, and how often? Ultimately, if your network's not changing that frequently or at all, with an average lifespan of around 4 years, a good benchmark would just say do it at the halfway point or the 2-year mark. And if you want to be even more proactive, you could do one every year. So with today's monitoring tools, we're able to take a much more proactive and real-time approach to the management of not only our network, but the user experience as well. We're able to establish a baseline of performance through historical data and have much greater visibility into what's actually happening on the network. So through the use of software and real-time data that's being pulled from your infrastructure and your end users, you're able to be much more proactive and actually solve those smaller issues before they ever impact the network and your users. Should anything larger or more complex arise, you can always turn to a Wi-Fi performance assessment to solve those issues. So if your company's doing a lot of major changes to the network or your infrastructure, to the business applications that you use, or the devices that are being found in your environment, you're probably going to be doing several performance assessments per year. On the flip side, if your company is not doing frequent changes, then every 1 to 2 years is probably a good baseline, or as problems arise. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more actionable Wi-Fi tips and strategies that'll help improve your business. If you're looking for more detailed information about assessments and site surveys, I recommend following the links that we provided in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.